Hello, y'all. This is Trent Knox with the Trent Knox Show. This is season 2, episode 7, and I am joined by my good friend Bryan Kern. Ooh, let's see.
Are we live?
Bryan!
Are you actually doing this live?
Bryan
Man,
Kern, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing real good.
Mm,
Honored to be on the show. I've loved the episodes that you've done so far, man. Been really into it.
we're gonna have to
So,
turn you up. You're very quiet.
hear me better now? Yeah?
Yeah, there we go.
Alright. No, excited to be on, man. Excited to be on. Love the shows you've done so far, and can't wait to get into some good topics. And yeah, man, I'm excited. How you been?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Done a lot of things. So I told you before that I needed to do some housekeeping before I went into this episode,
Yeah.
but um, I kind of did it yesterday. So today we can focus on you first. So first off, can you explain to the people listening what what does Bryan Kern do?
So currently, I am the host of the Common Chaos podcast. Common Chaos um, is a project that I started probably about 2 years ago, and it's kind of morphed its way into a podcast that I do try to put out on a weekly basis. Much like this one, I sit down with people, have discussions. You were actually my first guest, and you helped me a lot through the way, like when I was first starting off. Obviously, especially being associated with Austin Live and Local. I also have a day job. I'm a sales manager at, at a wireless provider. Um, I am a. I think that's it right now. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I
Hmm.
am
So
at least right now at the moment. I mean, I've got other stuff going on, but I wouldn't necessarily say like anything too definitive or defining right now. That could change. Could change here pretty soon,
sure.
I suppose.
Well, I mean, social media wise, you've been doing a lot of things that you picked back up in the martial arts. Um, you've been taking a lot of documentation of that. You started a new show in the martial arts with working class violence with Alex Assad.
That is
Um,
and that's something that I'm definitely gonna try to like spearhead a little bit more here coming up. But that is, yeah. So I guess podcasting a second additional one, the working class violence one. Um, I actually have another episode doing that, and that was something that we didn't really know if we were gonna try to do on the regular. It was more so for Alex's podcast, but I believe that we are now. I know that we were originally discussing about just doing a couple, and it's but yeah, I do believe we are going to continue that. It wasn't a for sure thing until I guess recently, I guess a couple days ago. But yeah, there as well.
so let's go back a little bit um, and go back to like the origin story. What introduced you to art, and what got your artistic fluids moving?
I've always really been into music. I can play guitar, piano, slightly play piano, not well. But music, I've always been really into music, and I guess like movies and theatrics as well. I always like played around as a kid, and just like every kid does. But I felt like I had a really vivid imagination, and I can't even necessarily say that I'm like too artistic because there are people out there that are definitely more artistic than me. Um, but I definitely have like a desire to create something for people or to create something that people like pay attention to or be good at something that requires people's attention.
Hmm.
Uh, Music is what kind of got me into actually being in front of people, being in bands and playing music with friends and learning to play music with friends and that kind of was my doorway leading into the creative world and then being on front of a camera and podcasting is something that I've just recently got into. A lot of it had to do with obviously working with you and and going and doing a lot of the projects we were doing, and I enjoy doing that. I don't necessarily know if I'm like too good at it or if I can like get better at it. I think I can. And then like doing the stand up and the comedy, I like doing things. I like doing things that require like people's attention. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know necessarily being like artistic as well, but I feel like you have to be artistic to kind of have that position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I played ukulele the other day for like 2 hours, right? So it was just kind of weird. But actually sitting down and playing ukulele, which is an instrument I've never played before, but it's very similar to guitar, so it's easy. And it's actually like sitting like getting into the groove. By the end of it, I was like in my head, imagining that I was like getting ready to rock out and like getting all jacked to play music. But I was just strumming around on ukulele. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Um, so you had a project when you were in high school, and then I guess when you graduated from high school. Can you talk about those projects?
Yeah, so I mean, those were music related. The one, I guess, at the end of high school, I don't really have anything in high school, but like at the end, getting out of high school, like my senior year, I really started getting into playing music with my friends, and I ended up two or three friends that I played with. We ended up starting a band right out of high school. Um, and it was just like your standard metal band from like the middle 2000s. It was nothing that good, but we had a lot of fun playing, and it got us a lot of experience in terms of just dealing with that type of like industry. I guess we weren't on too high of a level, but we were definitely at the level where we were playing gigs and making money for them. Nothing outrageous, but we were going places and playing shows and getting on some pretty big venues that are in the Southern California area, and it was I don't know, it was a good 3 or 4 years of a lot of experiences that were new to us, and to be able to do like I always recommend to people starting a band if they can. Like if you're musically talented in any way, start a band, have some cool experiences with some friends. Preferably do it when you're younger, just so you have that freedom of being able to move about and actually know that you're going to be sleeping like in a van and on people's floors and spending money at pawn shops and thrift shops just so you can get like pieces of equipment to use. And it's definitely a good experience I think people should have if they have the opportunity. And that's what I did. Like right out of high school, was able to do that for like 4 or 5 years and still have like part-time jobs and bounce around and do things. And um, that was definitely my first introduction to actually wanting to do something creative. But it's difficult because finding other people that are on the same page as you and want to go down that same route and that same road, it's tough. And once you get in it, you're kind of like, all right, I see why this doesn't really pay off for everybody that's involved, because it's a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of things you learn doing it, and I think it's probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. To be honest, I really enjoyed doing that.
That was
It
the
was the
band
chainsaw experiment, which was
Chainsaw Experiment.
horrible. There's horrible videos on YouTube, and yeah.
And
So
with that, you were doing like off the cuff interviews at music festivals and such. What was that called, or did it have a name?
yeah, so that was called. It started off initially as IHateTheScene.com. It was started by my buddy Matt Musselwhite. Um, he originally started that right out of high school as well, as a way to like interview local bands and get into like the local shows we were doing, because in Southern California where I was at, it was at the time, it was pretty heavy for bands to come through on their tour, especially smaller bands, because we're right along the 10. And uh, so for a chance to get into those shows and get exposure to those bands, he started this. Um, it was basically like an online radio kind of, but like before podcasting, because it was back in like 2007, before podcasting like really took off. Um, but he would just load up like episodes and videos to his MySpace like music player of just him interviewing bands, and then eventually he got a website and went on from there. And it was called I Hate the Scene. Then it turned into Scene Radio, or vice versa. It was Scene Radio, then it turned into I Hate the Scene, and it just followed like your independent metal, electronic, hip hop. It's basically like your underground radio station, and that was I was a part of that for a couple of years, on and off. He actually had it in California, stopped it for a while, and then moved out here to Austin. And then when I moved out here, we kind of kicked that back up. But now he drives full time for bands. He's a tour bus driver, so that's what he's doing now. But that was pretty cool. That actually gave me a little bit of experience for what we were doing with Austin Live and Local, which I think maybe came in handy a few times, like being able to sit and just talk and discuss things. And it's definitely gotten me into podcasting, and I'm definitely pulling from doing that. But it's different because when I was doing that, I wasn't looking at it how I look at like podcasting now. I don't know how I looked at doing that because I was young doing that as well. Um, but that was cool. That was a cool experience. Radio interview. I feel that that's my art. I don't know if that's necessarily an art, but I'm gravitating towards wanting to do something like that. Definitely.
So what happened in between I Hate the Scene and starting Common Chaos?
I mean, at one point they were kind of going at the same time. Matt
Mm,
actually did a lot with Common Chaos when I first started in terms of like getting in touch with people out here,
yeah.
and so they did intersect for a bit. Again, it that was always more his project. So
Right.
when he
Okay.
decided to do the tour bus driving, that kind of took off, and me getting re-involved with him out here in Austin definitely motivated me to make Common Chaos a like podcast format, because it wasn't always that necessarily.
Okay.
Uh, so he definitely kind of like I don't know, yeah, that played a part in it as well.
Yeah. Um. So, uh, brief rolling back a little bit. I forgot to preface that Brian is from Southern California, the Palm Springs area, the desert area, and he moved here in 2016.
Yes,
Moved
April.
here. Moved here in 2016, or here, sorry. Moved to Austin in 2016, and pursued a what I would call it probably a career uh, in Austin, and he brought down basically his whole family. Nah, I'm just kidding, but brought down a pack of people and has really been living the Austin hipster lifestyle. Um, eating guacamole on bread and drinking Topo Chicos.
Yep, yep. California's. I'm excited that California's getting topos eventually,
Yeah.
because they definitely deserve to have that out there. And the California on I don't know if the guacamole on toast is a California thing, but it's fucking delicious. I don't know why people hate it. It's so good. Y'all are crazy.
Sounds like a California thing.
It
Um,
is. It probably is. It most definitely probably is, but it's fucking delicious. You guys got to get on the train, man.
so, that's kind of a backstory of what Bryan Kern is. You've been starting up this martial arts thing. Tell me about what's going on with your martial arts training. Tell me what are some of the positives and what are some of the like negatives. What's going on?
So I've trained like mixed martial arts is really what it is. Jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, all that. I've trained on and off for probably 5, 6 years. My biggest time off was this most recent like 8 months to a year where I didn't even like bounce around at like gyms to roll around or get any training in. Um, but yeah, I've been training for quite some time. It was just a little bit more difficult to find like a steady school out here that I really enjoyed and liked being a part of. But I found one now. It's called Sinister BJJ, and it's in like the North Austin area. Um, and there's also Guerrilla Muay Thai. They're like a joint thing. But anyways, yeah, I've gotten back into doing that. Martial arts. I mean, I did like karate and stuff when I was little,
Hmm.
uh, among other sports. So I've always just been kind of into martial arts, and I'm a huge mixed martial arts fan. Um, and I figured what really got me into training like originally was if I'm gonna talk about like the sport, I should probably know how to do it, and I also know that it's like a great way to get in shape. And I used to be really out of shape, and I mean comparative. But yeah, and it's just something that I really enjoy doing, and I think that it's one of those things in life that definitely helps people, challenges people. I don't know if I necessarily get like a super therapeutic response out of it, but I definitely look forward to going to training jujitsu and MMA and Muay Thai. I mean, I'll just call it MMA, but I look forward to going and training those two specifically because it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of um, trial and error and getting tapped out and getting choked and sweating and, you know, having a hard, difficult time. You're fighting somebody for a short period and going at it for, 2 hours in the class. And it's definitely like humbling. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of people say that about martial arts, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it is. It puts you through some stress, but it's not unnecessary stress, or it's not stress that's out of nowhere that you're not able to cope or handle. It's stress that you know you're going into, and you're sitting there figuring a way to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yeah, I love it, man. And a big thing for me was having like a team of people that I enjoy training with, and everybody at that school is awesome. Me and Alex actually checked it out together. Alex is who I do Working Class Violence with, the MMA podcast. And he's actually a former fighter. He's fought before a couple times, and so he was looking to get back into it. So it was like a right time kind of thing. All the
Right.
pieces kind of fell into place, but it's awesome. If nobody does martial arts, I definitely encourage getting into that because it allows you to, I think, also prepare for real life situations. If you're ever in a situation where somebody wants to get hot at you, especially now, I feel like everybody's quick to want to pull out a phone when people start arguing and there's fights at McDonald's and there's a bunch of shit going on. Like, you should definitely learn how to defend yourself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is important too. And that's been fun. A lot of the people at the gym that I'm going to are doing a lot. We have one of our instructors going to Muay Thai here shortly to compete. One of our other guys, our jiu-jitsu instructors, is actually doing a pretty big tournament out here coming up. I don't know if I can say, but yeah, he's doing a
Mm-hmm.
pretty big tournament. I plan on having them on my podcast eventually, and it's been fun. It's been cool.
So now that you brought it up, what is the direction for Common Chaos? Um, what are you looking to? Who are you looking to interview, and what's kind of like the story you're telling?
So I feel like I've really honed in on what the message is with my last couple podcasts, and then the one I'm also putting out tonight. I'm putting out an episode tonight that I did. Um, and it's really focused on that defining chaos and order. So, Common Chaos is my podcast. It's a discussion style podcast where I sit down with guests. Trent's been on it before. Um, and it took me a real long time to kind of have like that main theme. So, but I always knew that I wanted to kind of focus on life and progression and becoming like a better version of yourself, as everybody likes to say. Um, or at least helping people cope with how life is. Like, we listen to a lot of podcasts and we hear a lot of things from people that are kind of on that upper level, right? Like, they've
Mm-hmm.
got the fan base, they've got the outreach, they've got the influence. And so I think a lot of people take what they hear and think that they manifest that like within their own reality, and it can be kind of hindersome, I think. And it can, yeah, we're listening to people that are successful and that have quote unquote made it, but not everybody's in the position where they get those 3 or 4 good opportunities, or they're in that position where they can capitalize like everybody does. um, but there is, I believe, like, you can really live your best possible life regardless of circumstance and opportunity. There's just a way to find it, and I'm currently like on that path, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are on that path. And I've been able to hone in that I think that it's a balance. It's a balance of having that chaos and that order. Jordan Peterson talks about it a lot. I really go into details about it on my last couple episodes, so if anybody's curious, commonchaos.net. But I help people try to manage their manage their chaos and their order in their life by sharing people's experiences, sharing my own experiences, learning from people. It's a wide range of topics that it's just topics all about life. There's nothing specific. Like when I had Trent on, we talked about getting into business and like social media and just facets of that kind of lifestyle. And, to be able to talk to Trent about that, who's experienced and has a lot of knowledge in that, it it paints a picture for people that are interested in that, and it allows people to learn from your experiences, maybe get some tips, maybe get some tricks, but also see that you're just starting off and you're in a position that a lot of people find themselves in, where you have the experience and you have the momentum. Where do you go from there? Do you build your own project? Do you get involved with other creative people? Do you take X, Y, and Z? And I just want people to learn from those. Um, so yeah, it's coming together. I'm eventually just gonna go listen to the podcast, and hopefully it explains everything. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Two things. Shout out Jordan Peterson, and then the next thing is I don't know as much as I think I would want to know about social media, and I learned more about it yesterday having a conversation. But uh, about Jordan Peterson, the first thing, um, I've been watching a little bit more of his not his content, but content around him and interviews he's been doing, and he he shows a certain side of himself in different particular interviews, and I don't I s- like 75% of me wants to be like, yeah, that's the right that's the right train of thought, and then other times it seems egotistical um, in what he's doing and what he is his message he's trying to give. Um, and I think that's something important to talk about. I guess maybe the first philosophical thing to talk about is the death of the ego, and trying to be more 90% for others and 10% for yourself.
that's interesting because I touched a bit on ego um, when I just did my podcast, and I think ego is something that is it's there. It is that cockiness, that arrogance, that side, and I know what you're talking about. I think from Jordan Peterson. I want to say though that that's not.
Well, here's what I was thinking.
Go for it.
He goes clean shaved into an interview with Joe Rogan, and then he goes with like a complete like looking like shit, dragged out beard into the interview with Aubrey Marcus, and it seemed like when he was more what's the word, like caveman, like with Aubrey Marcus, he seemed like he was exuding more of the extreme alt right things that he's been accused of.
I think that there's context around both those situations, and here's why. A, the first part is Rogan reaches a very wide audience, and a lot of the stuff that is referenced from Jordan Peterson is from his Rogan podcast,
Yeah.
especially when people are trying to defend him and his views against the people that come at him. Um, with the Aubrey interview, there's got to be context around that as well. We don't know that Jordan Peterson wasn't on vacation in Austin, and that's why he did that. Or maybe that was hey, yo, you're going to be in our area. Why don't you come through for a podcast? And Jordan just got done doing a week of maybe writing or something.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but that's also making an excuse. When you see like Brendan Schaub, who another shout out, Brendan Schaub, he's performing at Cap City this weekend. Um, when you see Brendan Schaub on his own podcast, to Joe Rogan's, to Aubrey's, to H3 wherever he is, okay, he's the same guy. He comes on, he portrays the same character, universally. And I felt like in each different aspect, you get a different Jordan Peterson. Like you can.
That's funny that you say that about Brendan Schaub, because the Fighter and the Kids subreddit
Mm-hmm.
is literally a shit talk fest on Brendan Schaub, and they have videos where they think he's trying too hard or he's
Yeah.
copying. He's been accused of stealing jokes.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you think he's the organic persona all throughout when other people think that the difference. And
I think that's jealousy. To be honest, I think it's jealousy.
it could be. It definitely could be. But I also think that can be applied to Jordan Peterson too. I think Jordan
Yeah.
Peterson being intelligent
Mm-hmm.
and affirmative in what he says can come off cocky, and that's what I was trying to get to like a second ago.
Oh,
It can be portrayed as cocky, or it can maybe come off to people that maybe are slightly offended by the things that he is saying
hmm
as cocky, when that's just him. Like if I was to define Jordan Peterson, I would define him as being assertive, because he's very assertive of the things that he knows or that he's aware of.
hmm
With opinions, I think get kind of hurt when he says some things, and then like when he dismantles people on fact. He dismantles people on fact and statistics, and he's always very upfront when he's wrong. Like when Rogan corrects him, or when he did the
yeah.
Rogan Weinstein podcast, they corrected him a couple times, and he okay, you're right, I was wrong. He's not ever argumentative that I've seen, in the sense that he's like trying to combat people off of emotion, where I think people can kind of go at him with emotion, and he doesn't respond, he doesn't react, and I think that triggers people.
I think what people also dislike is that he tries to quickly acknowledge he's wrong, and then try to like kind of cover it up that he acknowledged it. You understand what I'm saying?
Does that? Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, he does that. I mean, but okay, what? You can't apologize too much. You don't want to apologize enough.
Well, when someone apologizes, it needs airtime, right? It needs that breath, so that people can feel it before, right after saying something that's gonna cut people down.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
it's different. Maybe it's because he's like pissing a lot of people off, that it's like that, because on an individual basis the airtime doesn't need to be that long, you know.
I also think that his main concern
Oh,
how,
yeah.
is how he comes across to people. Yeah, I think his main concern is just sharing his knowledge, and like
Well,
when
if
he
that's the case, his main concern should be being right, and I think that from time to time, because he's wrong, that that's where the discrepancy comes from.
that could be. But so let's say you were in like a room with Jordan Peterson, right?
hmm
And you gave him a fact, and he was indeed wrong, right? And he apologized the exact same way.
Yeah.
I mean, if he does that over apology, that might just be like something with him personally, that he has to feel like he does that. I don't think that's meant to be portrayed to people a certain way, but we do definitely know. Like obviously, you notice that. You notice that as either like a flaw, or something that um, you
No,
know,
I think that what he's doing is correct. It just doesn't necessarily provide those people who are more emotional with the satisfaction of an apology. You know what I mean? So like he
yes,
goes from he's like, okay, I apologize. Now let's get to business. You know.
yeah.
Anyway,
So you're
um,
right there, and it's I don't know. I think he takes so much heat, and it's for little things like that.
hmm
And I I don't know. I think that that's like just the normal. Why do you think people that are a little bit more emotional don't get that satisfaction out of them? Like, why is it hard for people to just understand that he apologized? Do you have like an opinion on that?
um,
Because
he
why would
has, and this goes to the fact that he has a voice. Like his voice
right?
is very
Okay,
powerful,
okay, right,
and the people who are a little bit more emotional, they don't necessarily have that person that can speak intelligently for them,
right.
like Jordan Peterson.
I get what you're saying. That makes sense.
Because
Um,
there was another interview between him and like a British television female reporter, and she would just kind of like say the same thing again and again and again. When he said no, it's this, and then she say, oh, it's this. No, it's this, and that became aggravating. But that's the type of rhetoric that the emotional person who hangs on to these fabricated, you know, assertions on Jordan would be like. He says no, I apologize, you believe it that way, but this is the reality. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, do you ever feel that people get in conversations like that though and don't hear that? Like, what if he was to say it that way?
Oh yes. Hmm.
Chances that she still wouldn't even hear it.
Yes,
Or who's
I
to
do.
say that someone's not yelling in her ear, keep pressing the question, keep pressing it, get him to fucking respond differently or whatever. Who knows what
Yeah.
they're yelling at her to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 That's a problem. Uh, that's
and
high
we all
level production television.
it is, and we all know that, like, especially now, you have your one side news station, you have your other side news station,
Hmm.
and they say the exact same thing 18 different ways, but it's always going to try to produce that one response. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
it's, so they can build whatever narrative. I don't know how conspiracy theory we're getting here, but those types of interviews are real difficult, real difficult. And I don't know. I don't think Jordan Peterson necessarily was prepared to be propelled the way he was into people's eyes. Like, it's
No.
great that he's like, do you know who Noam Chomsky is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like him, like he kind of borders that realm as well. But
Hmm.
he's been writing stuff for the public to see for so long, and now he's got that voice to where he can actually come out and speak about what he's speaking about linguistically, if it has to do with the economy. He did the movie Requiem for the American Dream. Like, he has that platform and he's good at it. Where Jordan Peterson made it into the public eye because of like a conflict,
Right.
and now that he's got people listening to him so many people in such a short amount of time, I don't know if he was fully prepared to maybe have to come in and deal with the level of stupidity I'm sure he's dealing with.
Hmm.
You know?
Well, I have so many different topics to talk about and get to, but let me kind of jump forward to the Demi Lovato incident and a lot of the stars that we've lost over the course of a year. Um, what do you think is causing this social turmoil that's making public figures want to end their lives?
So the short answer is, I
I'm not
think,
looking for short answers.
I mean, it's not, it's short. We're like, I could literally open this up to like 4 or 5 different conversations, but what
Hmm.
I really am like narrowing it down to right now without elaborating too much
Yeah.
is um, the state of, okay, so let's take X, right?
Hmm.
And let's take Little Peep.
Well, no, I know where you're going with this. Let's kind of. I'm gonna advance it a little bit. Like Takashi 69 is in the news because he's just trolling constantly, and people don't know whether it's real or not.
Well, where I was going was, it's just there's a lot more people in the public eye now.
Yeah.
I We're just recognizing how many people suffer from mental issues
Mm.
or issues of like anxiety issues, and then when you're thrusted into this overwhelming reality of fame and money and decision making and people trying to influence you on both sides,
Hmm.
like Macaulay Culkin, look at him. Like, his life, for the most part, was shit, and he's a fucking weirdo. I mean, in terms of how it was handled, like financially, how his parents' relationship, his relationship, like, he didn't live the best life, and he got a lot of coverage because he was a child star,
Hmm.
and it was rare at that time for someone to get that type of attention and to go through that in the public eye.
Right.
Now we have mass amounts of people doing it. Uh, I think that
At different
it,
scales.
it these are just normal people, but just more of them are in the public eye now. So you're gonna have people that succumb to that massive amounts of stress. You're gonna have the people that succumb to the pressures of whatever may come. But yeah, you're just dealing with people that are just as unstable as the dude sitting next to you in the coffee shop, just as paranoid or as anxious or as stressed out as the doctor you saw, when you went in and saw him. Like, these are real issues that I think a lot of people suffer from. We're just seeing a lot of them in the public eye. And I think that I think people should pay attention to that. And I think what doesn't help is social media. And I know that you said you were learning a lot about social media. I'm kind of interested because you've always been the social media guy.
Hmm.
And like, there's we don't really, I think, know the effects of social media yet. we're gonna learn in about like 10 years, and I don't know what they're gonna be, but it's gonna be like character of like there's gonna be social differences on a pretty big scale. I think they're gonna recognize big changes in behavior, big changes in how people interact, and I think it's all through like social media. And I don't necessarily know if it's good. I'm not necessarily trying to sound like doom and gloom and it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are realizing the impact of their lives constantly being monitored and constantly, trying to get attention or clicks or likes, that little short hit of dopamine that everybody's trying to get. I don't think people understand. And we're seeing, I think, a lot of people fall victim to that, especially. I mean, the X thing's a little different because he was murdered, but the guy went out and then boasted about it on social media. Like, who does that? That's like going to the news station after you committed a
Well,
crime.
let's hold on. That's fake news.
How's that
So,
fake?
because the guy who boasted about it wasn't actually the guy who killed him. So,
But
like,
he was one that was arrested. No.
no, he actually, like, he boasted about it on social media, but he then made an apology and then said that because X was murdered, it affected his career negatively. See that it's like you have pieces of the timeline, which is
But
all right. That's a
well,
part of the problem. That is a big part of the problem because traditional news is
let
not
me
covering it.
let me cite something else because there
Yeah,
was also once the two guys that were originally arrested.
yeah,
What I had read was they referenced that video and the video that he posted, or not videos, but he did like several posts through Instagram weeks prior, and they all had the gorilla emoji, and that apparently was like that gang's sign of when they were going to do a hit or something like that. And that was from like a pretty reputable source, if I'm not mistaken. Are you sure that video wasn't real? Because they cited that
yeah,
video, two gentlemen that they arrested.
yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a confusion because there's hold on, some feedback, but there's a bit of confusion between what this person who is trying to there's these people called clout chasers. So like they for whatever incident happens in the realm of the like social media giants, so then these individuals will try to associate themselves with whatever it may be, like with Takashi's
All right, I get
chain
that.
getting
Yeah, yeah,
jacked.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's where the problem lies. The individuals who are traditional media, like judges, police officers, government in general, they only get like small portions of what's going on in the underground media, the social media. Now, what I was gonna say, you said you've learned a lot about social media. Well, I haven't really learned that much different. These social media is a tool, are tools of communication. Each of them kind of existing in a different place. I mean, Twitter was mobile first, and Facebook kind of came on the web-based tools. So they each have their own different thing. What I noticed is that the analytics aren't right. Um, they're each of them kind of shows you a different look into who sees your content, right? And I was speaking with a couple different people, including like my family and people I hadn't talked to in a long time, that they were seeing my content. However, I wasn't getting credit for them seeing it, so I don't really know who's seen, like who I know who's seen my podcast or my live streams or whatever. Other than the people who will go like either directly or but sometimes people see things indirectly,
okay.
and and that becomes a problem because who are you? It becomes a problem because then you don't know who you're trying to create content for, or because the audience that you that is being delivered your content is being determined by someone other than you. So like if it's Facebook, they're determining the the way who it's going to be distributed to. So if I could like any way like relate this to anything, it's kind of like being signed to a major label as a musician and being shelved for a bigger artist by and the tactic would be that the musician has made a new album and they're gonna pick which songs their budget should go to, their radio budget, their press budget, all their budget, what songs they're going to, and the label says, "Nah, we don't like that song. We're gonna go with this one," and it flops. And then the other song, it's kind of going, but it's not going in the way that it would if it had a huge budget behind it.
Yeah, and I just recently talked with someone, and they said that they were throwing a god awful amount into marketing and advertising,
Mhm.
and that's when it kind of triggered with me, where I was like, oh, okay, like that's really where your big investments have to go nowadays, because the way that they just have the advertising and the marketing dialed down through algorithms, and just it's just advertising in our faces constantly. And again, it's one of those side effects of social media where I don't think we realize how intense it is.
Mhm.
And that's where the money goes to, man. The money goes to filtering the content. And really, if you're going to pay that much money on marketing and advertising, chances are you've got a company that's doing it for you. You know, you have
Yeah.
a company that's probably backed by some sister group of fucking Fox or CBS or something, and you're getting that little extra bump or that push. And so that is, I think, the case. But you also see the people that essentially kind of hit it without necessarily having that opportunity or that connection.
Mhm.
But what I've
Yeah,
realized,
but that's that 1%. That's that 1%. Like
the
double
money,
blind test slit that you got to go through. That you're because you hit the glitch and the glitch
yeah,
sent you.
yeah, I can understand that. And yeah, exactly, that's what it is. There's that glitch where those, like, yeah, exactly, a fraction of 0.1% of people actually make it from nothing and hit that glitch and make it through. Um, but you do see quite a few people that claim that they have, like, I mean, I know you like Ty Lopez, and I hate to shit on the Ty Lopez, but I don't
Mhm.
think the dude really does anything different than anybody else. And I know, like, that's like the meme that is Ty Lopez,
Yeah,
but I mean, he what is he doing? What is he really doing other than probably funneling a
he's
ton
the
of
traditional. He's the
that
traditional
advertising?
motivational speaker, like the one that we used to see that would come to like our local event center or come to our high school to speak. He just kind of says these blanketed things that it seems like everybody should know, and that's what makes him famous.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, so I guess, yeah, exactly. He was a bad example. But there are people out there that claim that, quote unquote, make it right
Hmm.
because they have the means to spend that 40,000 in advertising. Does, like,
Yeah.
that make sense? Like, and at that point, when you had the means, were you really fucking scraping the bottom of the barrel and making it, or were you just opportunistic and you said, hey, I have 50 grand I can spend on advertising, I have a good product, I have this, I have that, I bet you I can hit that next little, spike in popularity. Here's
Yeah.
this grand. It's different, but I also think that there is an organic way to grab reach, and
I
I
don't
think
think
that
we've ever talked about it like this before, you and I, but yeah.
there's an organic way to grab reach, I think. But it's like you said, it's a sliver of people that can actually get through that hole and make it to the next level that are actually, not anywhere. Like you and me are around artists all the time.
Hmm.
Like, in the sense that we're down on Sixth Street seeing everybody hustling, right?
Yeah.
Who's making it? Nobody. There's probably 10 people we know in Austin that are actually putting in a lot of work with a mix of good marketing, good advertising, good artwork, good promotion, and they're actually putting in the work that might make it out of Austin. On
Well, in
scale,
addition to that, we got all these old heads, telling them that they're not ready, they don't have enough, this, that, and the left, and I think that I think that it's a difficult thing regardless if you have a catalog of 30 songs or a catalog of 30 albums or you're on your first album. You know, you could put out 30 albums you think is a classic and it not get the global attention that one album from some random artist off the street gets.
Right.
Oh,
And
goes that the best way to explain that is the homeless man with the golden voice.
right. And how many times are we gonna hear a fucking shitty Kings of Leon song? Like,
Hmm.
exactly. But Kings of Leon, for whatever reason, hits that ride, hits that roller coaster, and is able to fucking enjoy it the whole time.
Mm.
And the golden voice, the homeless guy. But and you know, people, that's it's almost more like there's context to that, and not to be like philosophical, but you know, there's lessons to be learned and all of that. Like, did the homeless guy make the best decisions growing up? Maybe he didn't. You know, maybe he did fuck up. Maybe that is a prime lesson. Like, hey, when you fucking
That's
do
probably a
drugs,
bad example as well, though, because he wasn't really pursuing it. For any long time. It was caught off guard, kind of. But the people who
oh yeah, you're
pursue,
talking about the legitimate news guy, right? They were pulling up to with the
yeah,
camera, and he was okay. I'm just talking like a. I was referencing more of just like a homeless guy that does sing on a corner and has a
oh
fantastic voice
yeah.
and didn't fucking make it. Well, why didn't he make it? You know, and
Well, yeah, I mean that particular. If we use the actual event as a reference, that was very off the cuff,
yeah,
unexpected. But what I'm saying is like the people who are in it for a little bit, and a lot of it has to do with the algorithm, not like the marketing or anything, but a certain time of day may change uh, when and not even like if you schedule it, but like just because they did it at that time, it's a lottery, it's a gamble.
right, right. Um, and that's a lot of it too, man. A lot of it is a gamble. Like you don't realize until I think you start working with, um, you know, you never go and directly start working with Fox, right? You always work at like that parent company that's owned by another company that Fox owns, right?
Mm,
And you way up a ladder, like if you're an intern or something like that.
yeah.
There's there's um, there's a lot of people that you know you brought it to my attention that just get picked up for like a fucking 360 deal, right? They get
Yeah.
picked up, they get their shit bought and sold, so they can't fucking make it on their own, and then they're fucked, right?
Yeah.
That alone goes to show you how many people make it in that one room, but then never make it out of that one room, right?
Hmm.
They never get to that next national tour level or that fucking headlining festival level. Like they didn't even make it out of that first room that they worked so hard to get into because they didn't have the experience or the knowledge to know how to work it better, or they didn't have the wherewithal to approach it differently, you know? And that right there is kind of like this immediate gut shot to everybody because like you can fight for 10, 15 years and try to make it into that one room, but if you don't have that experience and that knowledge that I think a lot of these older guys talk about to these young guys, that's maybe what they're talking about to an extent. Like, hey, if you don't know how to play that role once you get there, you're not going to fucking make it because you're going to be stuck in that room with everybody else that just got to that level.
Hmm.
Like, we're on level 8 of the 20 level game that nobody can beat, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and that's, for some people, that's defeating, you know, then why am I even trying? Maybe I started late or maybe I, you know, didn't make some right decisions before and now you're having problems pulling the trigger on decisions or whatever it may be, right? That's defeating some people that have that kind of mindset. And I think it can discourage a lot of people. But I think for other people too, it makes them want to like find out more pieces to that puzzle. Okay, well, what happens when I do make it in that room? Then what do I do? Then who do I got to talk to, or how do I have to handle myself in order to get out of the room? And then
Mm.
that's when you start talking to the people that maybe made it, you know, and that, you know, everybody makes it. Everybody's at the bar. Everybody's getting drinks. Everybody's in that clique. Well, which ones in the clique are the ones that are maybe on a little bit of a higher plane, you know, that'll
Hmm.
help you get out of that room rather than being stuck in there with everybody else? I think people can approach it that way too. But it's, again, it's a fucking gamble. Who even gets into that room? How is that, you know, is that can anybody just get in the room? No. And that's where it gets that's where that wall is with people. Like not even everybody gets into that shitty failure room. So where are you at prior to that? And, you know, I think a lot of more people have the opportunity now with, again, the way social media is, the way that people are networking and hustling and getting their fucking connections made. Um, but I also think that a lot of people are kind of in for like that rude awakening of you maybe aren't ready. And who's to say that the old bucks out here that are telling the young guys they're not ready are right, and incorrect in what they're saying. But I think that a lot of it comes from that.
Well, and I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit here. Is that, and I'm kind of disappointed because we didn't really get to much, but um, the the Justin Biebers of the world that have been in the game since they were 8, you know, successfully. You brought up Macaulay Culkin. It's a different game. It's a millisecond or even maybe slightly less than that with the internet, and until the viralness of something can pop,
Yeah,
and you know a good way to look at this is like with Demi Lovato. The Gary V said this, and shout out Gary V, that if you go back and you look at the past 6 posts up to the point in which she was doing almost killed herself, it's painting a very different narrative of someone who is suicidal, you know. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that we can uh, define what someone who's suicidal looks like in their lifestyle. Um, but you would think that a because obviously she's not, well, not obviously, we don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. I mean, and I'm including you in this we, is that whether she's in charge of her
that was
social
my
media accounts.
that was my first go to, and I admire. I like Gary Vee a lot. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. That's real easy for him to say because he is organically behind his Instagram. He is
Mm-hmm.
on it all the time. But I mean, you and me both know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people don't handle their Instagrams, and that I think even goes into a deeper conversation of who does she have around her? Does she
Mm-hmm.
have people that are acknowledging a problem and are managing her Instagram just to make the outside perspective seem like everything's hunky dory, or are people saying, "Hey, we don't need to be paying attention to the Instagram. We need to make sure that Demi's okay." Like who, that's a whole nother conversation to have as well. But I think that being able to paint the narrative off the Instagram posts, yes, if it's really her, then we are getting some mixed signals, and it may not be, there may be a certain way we have to approach it. But if it's not her controlling her Instagram, which is a very big possibility, then it doesn't even make, what are you really going to take off that, other than the conversation I mentioned a second ago? Like, I don't necessarily know if that was. Yeah, okay, so then what do you think? How do you think social media plays into these kids that
Uh,
are affected?
uh,
Like
because I don't want to like then dive down this other rabbit hole and take people behind like the veil
yeah,
too much, because it can get scary. It gets.
and what do you do? We talk about social media having like an impact negatively, right? What if
Yeah.
people did have like a better positive impact with social media? Would we be able to tell if somebody was suicidal through social media? I think people's depressed thoughts right now on social media and their posts, their blog posts, there's so much of it being flooded into people's eyes right now that it's losing it's like when people die. When you're a part of a bigger population and
Mm-hmm.
someone dies, it loses its impact because there's already so many of us. There's a comedian that said something about 12 cats. It was on Rogan. If I walked into a fucking house with 12 cats, I wouldn't mind if one of them died. But if I only walk home into my house with one cat, I'm really going to feel the impact of that cat's death. Like,
Yeah.
are we going to get to a point where we can start helping people cyberly? Like, people get cyberbullied. How the
Right.
fuck are we supposed to go from cyberbullying to cyber coping or cyber therapy? Like, when it's so hard to read signals and messages, and that's what I was talking about when it comes to social media. Like, we're on the horizon of a very weird social future, and I
Right.
think we're seeing it. This is it. And that's crazy that Gary Vee goes to the Instagram, because we wouldn't be talking about that 5 years ago. We wouldn't be talking about people being depressed through Instagram and being able to read those messages and those signs. That's craziness.
Um.
Okay,
I
maybe
think I think I think that it was Twitter at that time. You know.
Oh yeah, that could be, or MySpace. Like I said, we were
Yeah.
fucking doing MySpace back in the day, but that's where it originated. And
Hmm.
now kids are in, MySpace. I was in middle school when that came out.
Well, for you and I maybe, but like there was before that there were these forums and Friendster and all this other uh, all these other sites that didn't succeed in the way that, because at that time they weren't considered businesses.
Yeah, and they weren't used to propel people to stardom. They weren't used to. Yeah, exactly. It was a completely different world. It was
Yeah.
its infancy. It was like UFC in '93, like
Hmm.
15-minute rounds, no gloves. There was no structure to it.
Yeah.
But the structure that's coming along, it's working, yes. But are we like future prepping for what could happen?
Right.
And I think we're seeing that. I think what the first thing that pops up on Reddit when a celebrity dies is the list of tweets people shout out. You know, when they hear
Right.
about the
Yeah.
news,
Yeah.
who's attending the funeral though? Who's going to the actual ceremony? And
We've
and
talked about this before. Like you and I heard it on someone else's podcast. They were discussing like, okay, top five artists you would probably possibly go to their funeral, and then dot dot dot.
yeah,
But let me skip over that and go. I think that the scariest thing about the veil that is over the average consumer, and including myself, because I keep on going through this and over, is there are multiple versions of yourself as a user on on each individual platform.
right. Would
Um,
you be willing to call those like multiple egos?
no, well, I mean like literally. So like if let's say you're using your, and then that this gets convoluted, but I mean, let's say you had one profile, that
For
particular
the sake
photo.
of real quick, for the sake of originality, can I
Yeah.
go pick my suit up while we're doing this?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, cool. So keep talking, and you folks out there might hear me be picking up my suit
Yeah.
that I just
So
got.
that's perfect. Awesome content. Uh, here, what I'm saying is that it can be, you can live a life on within that one profile in multiple different like ways. So like other people can meme your particular video or whatever, or photo, and have it exist in a different context. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't know if you were asking a question. So you were asking a question with that?
No, I'm
I
just
thought you were
saying.
just
I'm saying
making.
like I was just saying that they can exist. It can exist in a lot of different ways,
It
and
definitely can. Yeah.
as a result, um, you get lost in what's really happening, and
Can I
then
pick the suit?
Absolutely. Is this something from alterations?
Yes.
Your name, sir.
Bryan Kern.
Sure. Okay. Let me go grab that for you, okay?
Yes. Okay,
and
continue.
then so you get that, but when it becomes like a Demi Lovato situation, there are there are individuals that are in charge of the image of Demi Lovato on each different platform.
I mean, again, are we stating that we know that as a fact or that's a possibility? Because it definitely is a
No,
possibility.
it
But
is it whether in actuality that's the case, it doesn't matter, because people that don't have permission to be painting her another picture are doing that, memeing her and posting her pictures in fake profiles, and then creating profiles
I'm
on
actually good. Yeah.
profiles on different types of web platforms, claiming this is the real her, and you have
Mm.
people in countries other than ours that are accepting that for the reality.
Don't try it on the day of your event, at least.
Oh, yeah, no, we're good. That I agree with, but I mean, we can even go deeper and say like her herself or 5 different personalities when she picks up the 5 different Instagrams if she's managing them herself.
Yeah.
Um, but are we with Gary V's comment?
Yeah.
Are we meant to have to manage people now through social media and through their regular, or are we just kind of left to say, well, this is another like tragedy, victim, whatever you want to call it. We need to focus more on like her own individual health. Like, where's the attention going to go? I think the attention that like Gary Vee and people are putting on the social
Well,
media
let's say
is
that.
important, but it's
Yeah.
got to be important because it affects things on the levels that are important. Like social media management now needs to be, probably rewritten for people that are in those positions. Like, hey, ethically, we need to be paying attention to the client, in this way or whatever it is. Like, you got to have that type of, I think, growth if we're going to have those discussions. If we're not going to have that type of discussion, then it's not really worth having the discussion. Like, if we're not willing to change how people view social media or how it's used or how it's ran, then there's no point in having that discussion because then it's just going to be ignored.
Does your mom have access to any of your social media?
Access, like my passwords,
Yeah.
or like no. Why would my mom have passwords to my
Well,
social media?
I'm just. I don't mean to make this be a joke or anything like that, but my mom has access to my Facebook before, and other people have accessed. I remember when my MySpace was hacked by somebody. Facebook seems to be not so much being hacked, or maybe they're more aware of the hacks, but in the same line of context, they are trying to determine what you would and wouldn't do.
Right. And so with I always kind of had this outlook on parenting, right? Because I've never been too fond of wanting kids of my own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's one thing that I realized when I was growing up is like when my parents, people talk about it all the time, like that resistance. When your parents tell you not to do something, you want to do it, right? There's some kids that are taught and have it in their system that they don't want to disappoint, or maybe they don't want to do something that's going to get in trouble. But for the most time, kids test their parents, and having that additional aspect of social media, your parent. I mean, I didn't experience it, so that's weird. But I can only imagine if a parent is going to have control over a child's social media, like, and I get it. If you're in middle school right now and you want a Facebook, a Twitter, and Instagram, yeah, if you're going to be a responsible adult, you probably do want to have control over your kids when what they do to an extent. But does it help the kid? I don't know. I don't know if it does.
But where does that end? Where does that consistent?
I don't know any parents that do that. There are parents that come in to my work and say, hey, I need to make sure that we get their passwords and stuff. And it's just like, okay, so this parent is that type of parent. They've got all the control. How does that help? We don't know. I don't see many parents willing to do that. I think it'd be probably easier just to not allow your kid to have any. I mean, if kids have access, I don't know. You'd have to keep your kid completely disconnected if you don't want them to have social media.
Well, no, that's not necessarily what it is, though. They don't. I don't think these parents don't want them to have access. I think it's. They wanna experiment with the way that the interactions are being made. So
like living vicariously through the kids.
yeah, like bizarrely, and that's terribly bad for a male and female relationship because the male is not gonna is gonna want to fuck bitches, get money, and the female.
At your mom's house.
What?
It's the equivalent of living in your mom's basement at like 35.
No, I don't think so. No, because in that situation, you can control yourself and walk the fuck out the door, right?
I mean, yeah, but wouldn't that be the equivalent of like getting new social media and being like,
No, I don't think so. I think
account got hacked, new account, add me.
no. What I think is like I mean, the only way to explain this is like in a very like weird like fucking Twilight Zone situation was I was like on Facebook and I was browsing and shit and I found this account of a girl who got kidnapped and there was like all this on there, and then like the social media was like overtaken by her mom, who like stole a old, or not stole, but found an old phone of the daughter's, with the Facebook still logged in. So she got into the account and then overtook it, changed the password, and then like there was like in the comments you could see a huge conspiracy of like, oh, you were the one who did it. You're the one who killed your own daughter. She was murdered. She blah 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 blah, and oh, wild. And I was just thinking like, wow, like we are in a weird world, because if you're not on social media, you're irrelevant. If you're on social media, you're irrelevant, because where is the actual like real connection that you make like with each other in the real world? Or
So
what is the real world? I
that was
mean,
gonna be my question. Are we ever like? I don't necessarily think that that's like there is a real world anymore. I think our world is transitioning to this like digital cyber.
no, because you and I met in what would be considered the real world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying, yeah, but that was what 2 years ago, and that was like that still happens. I'm not saying that that doesn't exist anymore, but I believe as we progress digitally, that we're again with the social interaction change, we're going to see a difference in how people meet and greet, how people. I mean, social media has changed the way people date. Like that is already a measurable impact. Like people have changed the way that they're dating and engaging with people of the opposite sex in hopes of starting a family because of social media. And
Yeah, but the problem with the dating portion of this, especially in the like opposite sex, is because there are all these algorithms that were designed by people of the old world, and we haven't yet seen the media of the new world start doing the design, because we have a lot of racism built in and sexism built in within these platforms through the way that the people were thinking in the old world.
yeah, I mean, and it's gonna grow with anything. I mean, the like Tinder and Grinder and all those fucking weird dating apps that are out there.
Yeah.
They're, they're not perfect, you know. And you see a lot of swipe lefts, I'm sure. And you see it now. You see I had a discussion on my Facebook recently about gun control. Like
Hmm.
a couple of back, they got a bunch of people riled up, and one of the comments on there was that men feel like uh, demasculinized, like they're not masculine, they're losing
Yeah.
their masculinity, you know,
Hmm.
and it they attributed it a lot to how people are, being treated over social media, like rejection. Like men are receiving rejection at higher rates now because they get no likes or no swipe rights or no matches on their profile, rather
Yeah.
than mustering up to go to a bar to talk to a girl and have her say no.
Well, the problem here's weird though, about the like the apps like Tinder and stuff like that, is that it's a female platform. It's geared for the females. Now, if it was geared for the males, it'd be a whole lot different, right? So, in order for you to like, in order for the platform to work at all for a male, the girl has to match with you first, and how often is that? That's not even old world mentality, because old world mentality would say that the man approaches the female first, and courts the female to begin a relationship.
Right. And I think that with that, see, that's a big social thing because I think the social dynamic for women, especially now, is changing. And there's definitely a re-uptake in like women's rights, and there's definitely more emphasis on um, relationship norms.
Yeah.
You see a lot more stay-at-home dads. You see a lot, uh, and so I think is that's going to coincide with the change with what social media is already doing to that. What's interesting to me though is when it's going to eventually have that flip. When are we going to go from right now? The most effective way is still communicating, probably face to face, over dinner, over a glass of wine, whatever it may be, when are we going to hit that shift where the more effective way becomes those short 5-minute algorithm matches? Because the algorithm already knows that you're likely to hit it off with this person.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's what.
When do you start? When do you stop disagreeing with the algorithm and just following the algorithm and going with it? And you get the match, you go, you fuck, you might have a baby, and you leave.
Yes. Full babies, because the algorithm's got your pictures,
yeah, right.
and they've already
Right.
done the morph with the other picture of the mate and what it could potentially look like. And science is awesome now, so it's a 98% chance it's going to look identical to that beautiful baby you just saw.
Yeah.
You know.
It's crazy. All right, I'm gonna let you go, man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Can we please do a part 2? Because I feel like I'll be in California all week. You can call me, and I'm literally not doing anything.
We can do a part 2. I want to go back and listen to this one and see where we can pick up some of the topics that we talked about. I think we came to a good one here, and it's the nanny state, and I think we
The
can.
nanny state.
Yeah. Have you ever heard that before?
I have not, no. And I was gonna say too, my social media dating, like I never was on Tinder. I was never on like the social media apps. I did slide into DMs, but I was never like really engaged in those dating apps. So I can't speak to like the effects of getting swipes. But I definitely
you've heard of what a nanny camera is, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah,
essentially, what the nanny state is within your pod. Within your pod, you are being monitored by they're making an effeminate character, and on top of that is the Big Brother state when you leave that pod, and then on top and then on top of that you get another state, which is probably the God state, and that's just kind of like monitoring and determining what enters your filter bubble. Anyway, so I'm gonna let you go. And
yes, and I when I get back, I plan on having you on. So, hopefully we can get that done. And I would like to do a part 2. Thank you for having me on, and it was fun talking.
maybe we'll do part 2 on yours.
Yeah, we can do that definitely. I'll get you I get back next Wednesday, so I'll get you in like next weekend.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah, cool.
All right, talk to you later.
Later, man.